Chapter 5 of the Pirate's Own Book by Charles Elms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kerry Hiles. The Pirate's Own Book by Charles Elms, Chapter 5. The Life of Lafitte, the famous pirate of the Gulf of Mexico, with a history of the pirates of Barataria and an account of their volunteering for the defense of New Orleans and their daring intrepidity under General Jackson during the Battle of the 8th of January, 1815, for which important service they were pardoned by President Madison. Jean Lafitte was born at St. Malo in France in 1781 and went to sea at the age of 13. After several voyages in Europe and to the coast of Africa, he was appointed mate of a French East Indiaman bound to Madras. On the outward passage they encountered a heavy gale off the Cape of Good Hope, which sprung the mainmast and otherwise injured the ship, which determined the captain to bear up for the Mauritius, where he arrived in safety. A quarrel having taken place on the passage out between Lafitte and the captain, he abandoned the ship and refused to continue the voyage. Several privateers were at this time fitting out at this island, and Lafitte was appointed captain of one of these vessels. After a cruise during which he robbed the vessels of other nations besides those of England, and thus committing piracy, he stopped at the Seychelles and took in a load of slaves for the Mauritius. But being chased by an English frigate as far north as the equator, he found himself in a very awkward condition, not having provisions enough on board his ship to carry him back to the French colony. He therefore conceived the bold project of proceeding to the Bay of Bengal in order to get provisions from on board some English ships. In his ship of 200 tons, with only 2 guns and 26 men, he attacked and took an English armed schooner with a numerous crew. After putting 19 of his own crew on board the schooner, he took the command of her and proceeded to cruise upon the coast of Bengal. He there fell in with the Pagoda, a vessel belonging to the English East India Company, armed with 26 12-pounders and manned with 150 men. Expecting that the enemy would take him for a pilot of the Ganges, he manoeuvred accordingly. The Pagoda manifested no suspicions, whereupon he suddenly darted with his brave followers upon her decks, overturned all who opposed them, and speedily took the ship. After a very successful cruise, he arrived safe at the Mauritius, and took the command of La Confiance of 26 guns and 250 men, and sailed for the coast of British India. Off the Sands Heads in October 1807, Lafitte fell in with a Queen East Indiaman, with a crew of nearly 400 men and carrying 40 guns. He conceived the bold project of getting possession of her. Never was there beheld a more unequal conflict. Even the height of the vessel compared to the feeble privateer augmented the chances against Lafitte, but the difficulty and danger, far from discouraging this intrepid sailor, acted as an additional spur to his brilliant valor. After electrifying his crew with a few words of hope and ardor, he maneuvered and ran on board of the enemy. In this position he received a broadside when close to, but he expected this, and made his men lay flat upon the deck. After the first fire they all rose, and from the yards and tops threw bombs and grenades at the forecastle of the Indiaman. This sudden and unforeseen attack caused a great havoc. In an instant, death and terror made them abandon a part of the vessel near the mizzenmast. Lafitte, who observed everything, seized the decisive moment, beat to arms, and 40 of his crew prepared to board, with pistols in their hands and daggers held between their teeth. As soon as they got on deck, they rushed upon the affrighted crowd, who retreated to the steerage and endeavored to defend themselves there. Lafitte thereupon ordered a second division to board, which he headed himself. The captain of the Indiaman was killed, and all were swept away in a moment. Lafitte caused a gun to be loaded with grape, which he pointed towards the place where the crowd was assembled, threatening to exterminate them. The English, deeming resistance fruitless, surrendered, and Lafitte hastened to put a stop to the slaughter. This exploit, hitherto unparalleled, resounded through India, and the name of Lafitte became the terror of English commerce in these latitudes. As British vessels now traversed the Indian Ocean under strong convoys, game became scarce, and Lafitte determined to visit France. After doubling the Cape of Good Hope, he coasted up to the Gulf of Guinea, and in the Bight of Benin he took 2 valuable prizes loaded with gold dust, ivory, and palm oil. With this booty he reached St. Malo in safety. After a short stay at his native place, he fitted out a brigantine mounting 20 guns and 150 men and sailed for Guadeloupe. Amongst the West India Islands he made several valuable prizes, but during his absence on a cruise, the island having been taken by the British, he proceeded to Carthagena and from thence to Barataria. After this period, the conduct of Lafitte at Barataria does not appear to be characterized by the audacity and boldness of his former career. But he had amassed immense sums of booty, and as he was obliged to have dealings with the merchants of the United States and the West Indies, who frequently owed him large sums, and the cautious dealings necessary to found and conduct a colony of pirates and smugglers in the very teeth of a civilized nation, obliged Lafitte to cloak as much as possible his real character. As we have said before, at the period of taking Guadeloupe by the British, most of the privateers commissioned by the government of that island, and which were then on a cruise, not being able to return to any of the West India Islands, made for Barataria, there to take in a supply of water and provisions, recruit the health of their crews, and dispose of their prizes, which could not be admitted into any of the ports of the United States, being at that time in peace with Great Britain. Most of the commissions granted to privateers by the French government at Guadeloupe having expired some time after the declaration of the independence of Carthagena, many of the privateers repaired to that port for the purpose of obtaining from the new government commissions for cruising against Spanish vessels. Having duly obtained their commissions, they in a manner blockaded for a long time all the ports belonging to the royalists, and made numerous captives, which they carried into Barataria. Under this denomination is comprised part of the coast of Louisiana to the west of the mouths of the Mississippi, comprehended between Bastion Bay on the east, and the mouths of the river or Bayou La Forge on the west. Not far from the sea are lakes called the Great and Little Lakes of Barataria, communicating with one another by several large bayous with a great number of branches. There is also the island of Barataria, at the extremity of which is a place called the Temple, which denomination it owes to several mounds of shells thrown up there by the Indians. The name of Barataria is also given to a large basin which extends the whole length of the cypress swamps from the Gulf of Mexico to 3 miles above New Orleans. These waters disembogue into the Gulf by 2 entrances of the Bayou Barataria, between which lies an island called Grande Terre, 6 miles in length and from 2 to 3 miles in breadth, running parallel with the coast. In the western entrance is the Great Pass of Barataria, which has from 9 to 10 feet of water. Within this pass, about 2 leagues from the open sea, lies the only secure harbour on the coast, and accordingly this was the harbour frequented by the pirates, so well known by the name of Baratarians. At Grande Terre, the privateers publicly made sale by auction of the cargoes of their prizes. From all parts of Lower Louisiana, people resorted to Barataria, without being at all solicitous to conceal the object of their journey. The most respectable inhabitants of the state, especially those living in the country, were in the habit of purchasing smuggled goods coming from Barataria. The government of the United States sent an expedition under Commodore Patterson to disperse the settlement of marauders at Barataria. The following is an extract of his letter to the Secretary of War. Sir, I have the honor to inform you that I departed from this city on the 11th of June, accompanied by Colonel Ross, with a detachment of 70 of the 44th Regiment of Infantry. On the 12th reached the schooner Carolina of Plaquemine and formed a junction with the gun vessels at the Belize on the 13th, sailed from the Southwest Pass on the evening of the 15th, and at 8:30 a.m. on the 16th made the island of Barataria, and discovered a number of vessels in the harbour, some of which showed Carthaginian colours. At 2 o'clock perceived the pirates forming their vessels, 10 in number, including prizes, into a line of battle near the entrance of the harbour, and making every preparation to offer me battle. At 10 o'clock, wind light and variable, formed the order of battle with 6 gunboats and the Seahorse tender, mounting 1 6-pounder and 15 men, and a launch mounting 1 12-pounder carronade, the schooner Carolina drawing too much water to cross the bar. At 10:30 perceived several smokes along the coast as signals, and at the same time a white flag hoisted on board a schooner at the fort, an American flag at the mainmast head, and a Carthaginian flag, under which the pirates cruise, at her topping lift. replied with a